What's the rudest moment you've ever had with a stranger? I was once walking my dog and stopped to sit on a park bench. My dog was lying down and tied to one of the legs. Then out of nowhere, this yappy little poodle thing comes sprinting around the corner barking and jumped onto my dog trying to bite her. The owner came around the corner and lost it, saying my dog could have killed his, and if I don't leave now, he will call the pound and get my dog put down, followed by a bunch of swearing and threats. I was 8, and the best reply I could come up with was, "Your dog is stupid." Was in line at Papa Gino's, order a few slices of pizza with the GF. Guy in front of us has already ordered and paid. He then clearly overhears us talking about what we want, which was the last 2 slices left. Dude pulls out his wallet for a second time and orders the last 2 slices. Walks away with a huge smile on his face after we made eye contact. The cashier, manager I'm assuming, ended up giving us 3 free slices not a few minutes after a fresh pizza came out. Everyone was just blown away by this dickhole. I'm Asian and from Hawaii. Granted, the lady at the airport only knew that I was Asian because I obviously wasn't white. I was standing with my sister by a Burger King at some airport in Charlotte, North Carolina. We weren't in line yet, just standing close because we didn't know what we wanted. All of a sudden, this lady came up to us and said, excuse me, but you know that they don't call you up? You know? You have to actually go up there yourself. We just smiled at her, and she went to order her stupid whatever. Wouldn't have cared much if she didn't say it in such a snooty, look at these dumb Asian sort of way. That's when you put on your best stereotypical broken English accent and go, "Oh, thank you, kind large woman. I see you know displaced viewy well. Must spend many time here. Only such big kindness can come from such big woman. Ching chonga bing bonga." Assuming she was fat. I love messing with pricks like her. I was at the Royal Canadian Mint, and they had one of those wooden cutouts where you stick your face through, and it looks like you have someone else's body. I thought it would be pretty funny to bend over to my side and put my face in upside down. A small Asian man speaking a language I did not recognize started yelling at me, so I stepped away. He proceeded to spit near my feet, slap me in the face, and storm off. I stood there in shock and did absolutely nothing about it. You disrespected his family man in China upside down face is instant disrespect. You can trust me, I saw a panda once. In the theater during the movie, a guy sitting nearby whipped out his cell phone and started telling someone he called all about the storyline in full voice. Everyone looked in amazement. When the couple sitting right next to him asked to please stop, he told the guy to go F himself so that it could be heard everywhere. It was really rude, not only for his behavior, but also because he ruined the movie experience for everyone else in the process. I went and got an usher, asking for them to deal with it. The guy told me that I'd pay for it, but thankfully he was gone by the time we got out. We were at a theater when one of the Harry Potters was out. My wife and I sit down, and everything is cool. A woman comes in with 3 kids and take the seats to my left. Not the kids were cool. Well behaved. About 30 minutes and the mother whips out her cell and starts jabbering away, not really trying to be quiet. I let it slide for a few, hoping it would be short, but no luck. I turned to her and stated, "We paid to hear this movie, not you." She gives me this disgusted look and walks out calling me a name, leaving the kids there. She never came back in. I was walking home from the grocery store on one of the first days of spring after a long, cold Minnesota winter. I was wearing a sleeveless top because it was warm out and I hadn't felt the sun on my arms in 7 months. 2 older Somali women wearing jalabib were walking in the opposite direction, toward me, on the same sidewalk. When we got within a few meters of one another, one of the women stopped, looked directly in my eyes, and said slut. Then the 2 continued walking past me. I was stunned, and I haven't gone out in my neighborhood without a long-sleeve layer since, so I guess she beat me. I went to Taco Bell with my little boy a few years ago. He was about 3.5 years old, and he wanted a burrito. He was chowing down on it with a spork, making an incredible mess. Fortunately, I made sure the mess was isolated to only his hands, face, and the paper on which the burrito sat. Nearby, a middle-aged woman became very verbal on how disgusted she was at him and us in general. It was obvious that she was referring to us, as we were the only other patrons in the store at the time. She kept muttering ew and disgusting and other such words. In a Taco Bell, I let my son finish, and then I wiped him off with a napkin and we left, and I kept my cool. Boy, I felt like saying some things to that woman, but it wouldn't have been a productive or positive thing to do. I had someone tut at me in a diner a few weeks ago because my near 1-year-old was eating with his hands. I gave her a shit-eating grin and said, "He's a 1-year-old. You're obviously not. So what's your excuse for having terrible manners?" She shut the fuck up after that. I get not saying anything though. In those situations, it's easy to feel like you could get carried away. I I was sweeping up behind the counter at work one day, and some old guy whistled at me, just to tell me that the garbage can was full. I just shrugged and told my manager, though I did feel like barking to prove a point. Another time, a customer was trying to get my GM's attention while GM was in a conversation with a repairman, and the customer yelled, "Can't this broad hear?" Somehow the GM didn't hear, but me and my coworker did, and I stood there in shock while coworker finally managed to get the GM. I was at my therapist's office, and this lady was making a big issue about when she could come in next time. She was rude and obnoxious to the lady at the desk. Lots of people were staring at her, and she was using her diagnosis as an excuse to be rude. I wasn't paying any attention to her. I was reading my book. I look up for a second to fix my glasses the exact second she sets her sights on me. I smile trying to be polite, and she says in the rudest way possible, "What do you think this is funny? Do you think sick people are funny? There's something wrong with you." I had taken offense because I am bipolar class 2, but at the same time, I don't make public displays of anger like that. I replied, "No, I was just trying to be nice. I have no problems with you." And I got a stink face back. I had a woman in my workplace tell me that I would regret my tattoos on my wedding day. I'm a beautiful girl. Why would I ruin myself like that? When I put on my dress on my wedding day, I will regret it all. I informed her that I am already married, and my tattoo-covered husband thought I was a beautiful bride. When I was younger, a few girls were walking around talking to each other, and one of them turned to me as a joke and said, "Hey, my friend likes you." Then the other friend turned to me and said, He's ugly," and I was just appalled that a stranger would be so rude. All I said was, "You're not so great yourself," and walked away. I'm not ugly by any means, but still rude. LOL. Was sitting in a park reading the second Game of Thrones book when a guy comes up and asks what I'm reading. I tell him what it is, and with the biggest shit-eating grin, he proceeds to tell me X and Y die. I've seen the show. I sit there stunned for a second, and then with my sweetest smile, I rattle off the fates of several other characters and tell him, "I've read the books before. This is my second reread." He looked so stunned it was beautiful. I couldn't believe such a perfect opportunity for karma arose. I was interviewing for a long-term nanny position. Everything was going well until the subject of payment came up. For some reason, they thought it was okay to pay me less than minimum wage while their children were sleeping. After carefully and sensitively telling them my bottom price, the mother started to yell at me about white privilege and how I didn't deserve to make the average market rate, even though I have a decade of experience plus first aid/CPR training. She even said something along the lines of, "You owe me because my ancestors were slaves. How dare you ask for the normal nanny rate? And well, you're just going to be sitting on your ass on the couch." Eventually, I interrupted her, reminded her that I did not mean to insult her, and on the way out, I politely told her that I am descended from Quakers. Thankfully, I never heard from her again. I try to be understanding and flexible with parents who may be financially stressed. If she had not gone off on me like that, we might have been able to come to an agreement. Thankfully, I avoided an abusive situation. Walking through Disney World with my 2 young daughters and wife, already hot and pissed, and some other guy was pushing his way through the dense crowd. I could see people getting pushed, and he made a move that put him in line with my 6-year-old. He started to push her, and the moment his hand left her shoulder, I knocked his ass into the bushes next to the walkway. Someone else must have already called security or seen the earlier pushing, because by the time he was getting up and before I could get at him, they were there. Daughter was okay, and they hauled the guy out of there pretty quickly. My little sister chose me as her sponsor for her confirmation, even though I was waiting for a new liver BC. I was an end-stage liver failure. I was 18. Because of the high levels of ammonia in my body, I'd get very sleepy often, but I made it to her ceremony, and after my part 1 sat back with the rest of the people in the pews. I started getting sleepy, and a woman next to me snapped, "You're so disrespectful. Falling asleep in church." I pointed the woman out to my mom at the little cake and juice thing afterwards. My mom walked up to her and pointed me out. She said, "You know that girl you called disrespectful for being tired? Well, she's an end-stage liver failure waiting for a transplant. Maybe you should think before you insult people." The look on her face was priceless. It was great, and a year later, I got my liver. Yay! When I was in 8th grade, I was waiting for my dad to come pick me up, so I was sat on a bench in my school's lobby near a window. It was pretty late because I stayed after school for musical rehearsal. This neurotic-looking blonde lady comes over and knocks on the window repeatedly and asks me to let her in. I hesitated because you're not supposed to let strangers in, especially at night. So she presses her hands against the window and says, very slowly as if talking to a child, "Oh, speak English?" I was pretty floored at her nerve. It was obviously a racially charged comment, as I'm a mixed race, mulatto, but people often mistake me for Hispanic, Middle Eastern, Amerindian. I had some choice words I wanted to say to her, but chose not to, which turned out being wise because she was the goddamn superintendent's wife. I am 16 years old, and Eve always loved the name Ruby. I said to my mom that if I ever have a daughter, that Ruby will be her name. Anyway, I was standing in a shop with my mom and saw a keyring that had Ruby on it. My mom said, "Buy that for you, daughter." Next thing, the lady in front turns around, looks me up and down, and gave me a disgusted face. Bish. Not the rudest, but the most recent thing in my life. A coworker basically said to me, "Do you want me to tell the director that you don't want to help?" Which is her threatening me just because I did not want to do her responsibility of filing her paperwork. How I reacted. I said, "I don't want to help you." She basically did not talk to me for 2 weeks. Very unprofessional. I tried to explain that it was very rude of her to say that, but she said there's nothing to talk about, so now we don't talk to each other. I was at a bar with friends. It was crowded. I ordered drinks for the group, paid, and laid my tip on the counter right next to the bartender. I then moved to join my friends and didn't point out the tip to the bartender because he was busy with a patron and the bar was crowded. Later on, I went back to get more drinks and waited for more than 15 minutes, during which I had made eye contact with the two bartenders, and they ignored me and would go to people that just got there and were near me. The bartender finally got to me and gave me my drinks and then said, "If you had tipped, we would serve you faster." I have been a server and have scolded friends for tipping poorly. I tipped very well. I told the bartender I tipped him very well earlier and that my friends and I were leaving. I made my friends, group of 10, all drinking top shelf, leave and left them the bare minimum tip on the last set of drinks. The only reason I even tipped was because I figured another patron had ran off with my previous tip. I used to wear a little gold K pendant that my mother faced me when I was a little girl. Well, one day an older man saw it and asked what the K stood for. I told him it was my name. Keep in mind I'm of Hispanic background, but my name is not a popular Hispanic name. While this man stares at me as if I'm crazy according to him, I can't have that name, and I must be lying. My name must be more Hispanic, like Catherine or Karina or Catalina. When he saw my shocked expression, he said, "Don't worry, my housekeeper's name is Catalina," or something like that. One day, I was taking orders and was bouncing a bit, as I'm wont to do, Tourette's syndrome. So I greeted a customer, and he just gave me a weird look and said, "Okawaye, do you need to use the bathroom?" "No, hi. How are you?" Or, "I'd like a mocha, please." Just, "Do you need to use the bathroom?" First of all, I wasn't even bouncing that much. It was barely noticeable. Second of all, you don't ask a grown woman who you've never met before if she needs to use the bathroom, especially in that patronizing tone of voice he used, like he was talking to a 5-year-old. I reacted by politely taking his order because I'd like to keep my job, but I would rather have punched his obnoxious face. One time in college, I was feeling good about myself and went to class in a basic black skirt that was about 2 inches above my knees, a black shirt that didn't show any cleavage, and flat black shoes. It was a cute outfit, but nothing showy. A girl walked up to me, looked me in the eyes, called me a whore, and walked away. I just stood there for a few seconds trying to figure out what just happened, checked to make sure my tits weren't hanging out, wouldn't have mattered if they were, and kept walking. Let me set the scene. I was driving around a parking lot at the train station over and over again looking for a spot. Even though I was early that day, no luck. A train pulls up and lets off some passengers. Most people get picked up 1 or 2 head for the bus stop, and one guy starts walking toward the lot. I hate following people like a creep, so I pull up to him and roll down the window. "Excuse me, did you park here?" I asked, trying to take his spot. "I don't know. Do you think I parked here?" He asked. "I don't know, man. I'm just trying to find a space." I'm confused. "I don't know. Did I park here?" He says, and walks away. This was the rudest and most frustrating conversation of my entire life. The whole time he had this grin like he just wanted to fuck with me, and I've never even met the guy before. I'm still upset by it. Went to friend's boyfriend apartment to use his bathroom, and I went and knocked his door. Was on my phone texting her, so I was here. I wasn't too sure if I was at the right door. My phone was slammed to the floor by his friend who answered the door. Never met this guy before, but I was told by my friend by how much of an asshole he was, etc. We all went bar hopping later on, and whenever he hit on me or some girl, I would intervene with, "Don't you have a girlfriend?" Which he does. Asshole. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.